Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Instant Reaction. PSG 2, Arsenal 1. Arsenal are out of the Champions League for 24-25. Unfortunately, I don't know where George is. Whether he's crying at a corner somewhere, unsure. We were having some tech issues, and then he reset his router, and then I don't know where he is. So we'll start. Wow, where to begin? 2-1. A really disappointing evening. Season over, no doubt about that. Season over in 24-25. Arsenal out of all 4 competitions. And yeah, I really don't know where to begin with what was an incredibly frustrating evening. Yeah, just gutted. Let's start there. Just absolutely gutted before we get into any analysis. Just pure feeling gutted. George is here. Hello, sir. We've only just started. You're right.
Okay.
You good? You're in. Just starting with general thoughts. Absolutely gutted. Obviously, a really frustrating evening. So many places to go with this to talk about this Arsenal season, this Arsenal team, this night. But yeah, there is no better place to start than just the feeling right now. How are you feeling, George?
Frustrated. In a way, emblematic of our season, ultimately, with a lot of chances, a game in which we'll probably rue those chances, and we did rue those chances, in a game that ultimately, and in a season that people are annoyed, not on the result, but on the campaign, and at this top level, and at this season, you could not go a full year in 2024 without recruiting a forward that has proven to be catastrophic to the team's goals. I think that when you have a look at the first half, ton of brilliant chances. We were all over them in the same way that PSG get a deflected goal in the first leg after being on top of Arsenal for about 15-20 minutes. Arsenal have the reverse, and they do score a goal against the run of play, a very good goal, by the way, from Fabian Ruiz. And I mean, if you really have a look at it, beyond the post shot that was brilliant by Barcola, you're looking at an Arsenal performance that we should have had 2 goals inside the first 10 minutes. The Declan Rice free header, Bukayo Saka towards the end, of course, missing that really big open net. But ultimately, I feel like despite a good performance, none of that really matters in the context of the season. And that's kind of the through line, So as much as we can analyze how brilliant I think we definitely were on the night, and I think that we were unlucky to concede in the manner that we did, it's more of a case of, well, no one cares, because at the end of the day, we've gone out and we've capitulated our season to go through, right? Yep. Like that was the decision we made. So unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of outcome analysis towards this, but I'm uncomfortable with saying that we didn't have a very good performance today, because we did. But ultimately, it doesn't matter because we haven't gone through.
Yeah, on aggregate, Arsenal created 5.11 XG and scored 1 goal, and PSG created 3 XG and scored 3 goals. And that, I hope no one thinks that we're making excuses there. That's not an excuse. That is the story of our season. When that happens to you over and over and over and over and over again, and you don't fix it, that is on you. That can happen in a game. That can happen in 2 games, 3 games, 4 games, maybe in a period of a season. But that has happened so many times to Arsenal, and we've not addressed it. And I think fundamentally, almost every single person in the chat could basically summarize what the problem is. I think almost every single person in the Arsenal team, I think every person in the Arsenal coaching setup could tell you what the problem was. And I think I even said this before the game. No one, I said this on TCP Live. the reason I think things flip so quickly in the Arsenal fan base is because we know this team is flawed fundamentally. It's fundamentally not ready to go win a Champions League. So if we did it, it would be in spite of those fundamental flaws, which makes it feel really exciting. But if we don't do it, it's kind of evidence of the same thing playing out over and over again, which makes it even worse. And we're on the bad side. We're on that bad side. And yeah, like you could go into tonight's game and go, oh, but the Hakimi moment's just a moment with Partey on the edge of the box, and if Saka just finishes that chance, and if you say that every single game, there's a pattern, there's a story, and we haven't signed the attacking talent. We don't create enough chances. We're not ruthless enough, and that is on us. That's on us. So I'm not sat here tonight going, yeah, but. This is on us. This is on us, and it's on us not responding in January. It's on us not preparing in the summer, and it is now on us to go into this summer window and genuinely address this. Because it's the same issue playing out over and on. I don't want to hear any more margins and if we do this and if we do that, because between the boxes, George, we're an extraordinary team. We're building up fantastically. That opening 20 minutes. I mean, look at us, guys. We're extraordinary. We're at that level, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Well, it doesn't matter in the context of what we've done over the last year, right? Like I maintain, when I look at this draw, I maintain. I want to talk about the chances today, because I find it very annoying that the narrative around this game is not going to be that Arsenal dominated that match. And we're sitting there doing some outcome analysis as far as even if we bought a striker and we continue to create at 5xG and they don't finish their chances, you're not going to win things. And I think when you have a look at those first 10 minutes, especially in the Champions League, moments define your ability to have success. I mean, for God's sakes, we're sitting there talking about Declan Rice's 2 free kicks against Madrid inside 2 minutes. You don't do that. The story was that, oh my God, we completely killed Madrid, but it's based off 2 minutes in 2 extraordinary moments, right? And they're individual moments. And in a way, that's what Champions League football is about. We just saw another semifinal in which the swings about being 2-0 up were completely different. And I categorically agree with some of the comments I'm seeing right now that PSG had better chances. Martinelli has a brilliant chance. Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice in the header there. Bukayo Saka, the top corner fingertip save by Donnarumma. Like, let's not lie about the state of the game. Ultimately, we weren't good enough to go through. PSG have gone through. And that comes from the failings of what we've had to do this season. But I won't admit that PSG had better chances than Arsenal in this match, when it certainly wasn't the case. And they've scored off a major deflection. And Hakimi has a brilliant goal in terms of digging it out, but it comes from a Thomas Partey mistake and Martin Odegaard losing the ball a little bit earlier in midfield, giving them an opportunity to do that, which you're going to do when you're searching for the game. It's weird. Like, you can talk about this game in a microcosm, but you can't in the context of this season. And that's where we failed for me. It's the context about the decisions from above and the board in terms of how they've prepared the team for this season. And I cannot excuse a team coming off the back of the season we had last year and then deciding to go the entirety of 2024 without recruiting a single forward, without doing that. And that's going to be something that you're missing, because ultimately that's what counts in those big moments.
Yeah. And I knew the moment that Hakimi goal goes in, no Arsenal fan can look me in the eye and say, yeah, you might have believed as a fan, like, let's keep going. But you don't think, no, don't worry, we'll score. You don't think that. We're not that team. We're not that team. You knew it was over. PSG's goals in the semi-final against Arsenal: Ousmane Dembele 0.07 xG, Fabian Ruiz 0.04 xG, Achraf Hakimi 0.07 xG. And I don't make that point to go, oh, we're so unlucky, guy. I'm making that point to go, what does that prove? That proves that you take your chances, you find proper ball strikers, you have players who take, there's moments where the game opens up. Trossard is in the box, and I don't want to blame, we can come to individuals, but this is an Arsenal problem. Trossard is in the box. The game opens up for him, and he delays and delays, and he goes back. Martin Odegaard, so many moments over the two legs where the whole box opens up for him. He doesn't finish. Bukayo Saka scored the goal. Fantastic player. I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about a collective issue. Misses that massive chance. This is a collective issue that we have. And until we rectify it, which ultimately everyone knows is in the market and is in attacking talent, there's nothing else to say. And the worst part is, George, we all knew this. We all knew that was the problem. No Arsenal fan went into this evening thinking, have a guess how we might go out. And everyone would have guessed this version. Everyone would have. Which makes it all the worse.
Well, I think it's why I was so pissed off in January. That's why I went so hard that I did in January. I ultimately knew this is going to be the story of the season. Did we have an ability to dig something out? Potentially, but you're winning on margins. And the one thing I will say, when you listed off those moments, I actually don't know if it proves ball strikers, but it proves that you don't win by studying. So what I mean by that is you're not owed success because you've done the study and the work. Sometimes it doesn't go that way, and you do have to, in a way, buy your own luck. And that is part of the equation. When you start reeling off some of those chances and you start reeling off what we did in this tie in general, I don't look at a major difference between us and PSG whatsoever. What I look at, though, is a team that far too often this season has dropped 21 points from winning positions. I look at a team that fundamentally, and this is something that I've always criticized with Mikel, they're, for hook or by crook, in the run-in, the team capitulates in an area of the season that leads to ultimate capitulation in another competition that they hope to do better in. And I just fundamentally disagree with that analysis in terms of the draws that we did in the Premier League, to me, set the tone for an approach of success. The manner in which some of those draws came out, I'm going to rue. Like, if I look back, I'm not going to complain about this game. You can lose this type of game. Yeah. This can happen. But over 190 minutes, you can't expect to draw in the manner that we did, before and after games of this tie and of this magnitude. That you can't do, because it leads to this mentality of accepting that kind of behavior. And it inevitably leaks into a lack of conviction. That's what it does for me. And that's what I saw. But again, I refuse to look at this game and say that it was a game in which we lacked chances, we were dominated, or that PSG had more chances. I refuse to have that narrative run. We genuinely had 4 to 5 open net potential opportunities that we sacrificed. And again, that's on us. That's on this team that has failed to do it. It's in the microcosm of not recruiting a forward in 2024. But at the end of the day, that seems to be the issue. And we start to reflect on this season, I think we're going to rue the fact that we've dropped 21 points from winning positions, which is genuinely shameful. We're going to rue the fact that we didn't, at times this season, manage the tempo of our games. And we're going to rue the fact that, yes, from a recruitment standpoint, we refused to recruit in the first half of 2024, or not the first half, the entirety of 2024.
Yeah, anyone claiming PSG with a better team or blew us away over two legs just hasn't watched the game and isn't analysing properly. But what they might be onto is an outcome, and where does that outcome come from? And you can see it in the numbers. It's not opinion whether PSG didn't blow us away or not. We got more expected goals, more shots, more open play shots, more possession, more passes, more field tilt, more final third entries, more less expected that created, but more deep touches, zone 14 touches, more crosses, more progressive passes, more dribbles, more less tackles, less the possession. There's a running XG across the game this evening. Again, the quality of the chances are a big question for us. Shot location, again, some really shots really close to the box, dealing with central shots from in the 6-yard box for Arsenal and not making anything count. You can see again in the field tilt numbers, and even in the field tilt World Championships, Man City are ahead of us, so maybe we shouldn't even try and win those. But only certain periods of the game, we came out after the second half, and sort of middle of the second half, where PSG had anything for us in terms of in that metric. And look, I want to come to individuals. Thank you guys for your super chats and stuff. We will. This is going to be. I'm sensing a long one, so we'll come to as many of the super chats as we can, and we'll do kind of, there's many different aspects of sort of the post-mortem of the season, because we are in post-mortem mode. That's absolutely what we're in. There's many different aspects. There's the coaching, there's the players, there's the red cards and the injuries. We can go through many different things, but I just want to look at some individuals this evening, and I want to say this. These are the nights. Forget the data things and forget the ratings on FIFA and forget all the things that you're right. Just look with your eyes. Who stood out to you this evening? Who this evening stood up away at the Parc des Princes and you went, okay, I rely on you. Next time we go there, whether it's next year or the year after, whatever it might be, whether it's away at Anfield next season or whatever it might be, who do I buy? Who do I say to you, actually, you stood up and you performed, even if you didn't actually have your best night? Bukayo Saka stood up. It wasn't his best. Bukayo Saka did not have his best night. He did not, but he still scored. And for me, he was still threatening all night. William Saliba was fantastic this evening. Declan Rice was fantastic this evening. There's a lot of players that when we go through, the guys that we sort of know, but there are other players who, I'm sorry, and I know we go on about Odegaard or Martinelli or whatever, but you cannot look me in the eye, and I'm not picking out any individual. I'm not trying to say Odegaard or Martinelli or whatever, but you cannot look me in the eye and say, yeah, all 11 players stood up this evening, and that was great. There are players to build this team around, and they showed themselves this evening. They showed themselves across this season, and there are players not to. And we have to, as a fan base, pick your player. It's up to you. Then I can go into who I think, but pick your players to build around, because they showed you this evening who they are. They showed you on the biggest stage, and some of them stood up, and some of them didn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I might slightly disagree. I actually thought that Saliba had a tough match, especially in the first half. I think he gained a lot of more momentum in the second half, because I felt that there was a lot of nervous energy that he had, especially in the giveaway of the pass early on. And he was judging the distances pretty difficult in terms of some of those breakaways. I thought he didn't have his best game, and I thought he's been a little bit less functional the last 3 games, Saliba, from the level that I know him to be. But I look at that performance in general, and I think Saka didn't look fit, but he was threatening constantly. I actually thought Martinelli did well in terms of trying to stretch the pitch, especially in that first period. It was really dangerous. And there was moments, I don't want to say it because I love the boy, but Miles, I thought, had probably his toughest match that we've seen in an Arsenal shirt. And again, this isn't to blame him, but it's just trying to speak what I see. And Marino had a really good game, actually. Yep. I thought Marino had a very good game. But part of the problem is we found him too often outside the box, and that is a little bit of the microcosm in terms of how we're trying to play in these moments. I think ultimately this team, when you look at it, how many of that first 11 are we going to continue with? How many of that first 11 are we going to change? That has to be a question. And I do think that we're looking at 2 to 3 big additions, in the squad, in the starting 11. But it becomes a really difficult thing for me to analyze in isolation, because, I just feel like this game isn't something that I've seen, but the story is something I've seen all season. And I do go back from failings a lot earlier. It's not something, but I do maintain the one thing that I think we should look at as a post-mortem is this idea that I do feel that Mikel in run-ins has capitulated a part of the season to ultimately fail at the final hurdle in others. And, I think it contributes to some of the mentality and the conviction. Our performance, when we talk about performances in the cups and performances in those big moments, I think part of the reason why you can't just throw away those moments in those games, and especially when you look at the odd draw before and after a big tie, you have to approach them with very big seriousness in terms of a major performance. And that to me has been the frustration of the last 3 to 4 years. I feel, despite there being context as to why we may want to prioritize a cup competition, the theory to prioritize something is just not something that I personally believe in, because it sets you up poorly as far as conviction goes. So that's probably the only thing I would say.
Yeah, and actually contextually, I was thinking about this today. Like, you know, with the calendar, with how intense football is it possible to prioritize full competitions? That's a completely different conversation. But regardless, however we've approached it, whatever we've thought, whatever we've done, hasn't worked. So it doesn't matter, you know, whether it's fair or right or whatever, it hasn't worked. So yeah, it's an incredibly frustrating evening, and I have to be honest. I look at that starting 11. Look, probably Gabriel and Havertz start. But otherwise, outside of that, I think that's our starting 11. And I completely agree with you, mate. There's 2, 3, maybe even 4 players there this evening who I look at and I go, if you're not there next season, I haven't looked at you in the Madrid first leg, second leg. I haven't looked at you in the PSG first leg and second leg and gone, oh no, I need to build around you. You might show me something. I might be convinced another way if you're put in a different position, maybe. But I have to be honest, and I'll name names. I will name names. The likes of Martin Odegaard, the likes of Gabriel Martinelli, the likes of, Kivior is probably unfair to say to him, but those two would probably be in a lot of people's starting 11s. And I have to say, look, I'm not sat here this evening after that game saying they're out my team or they're in my team. I'm not saying that, but have I seen enough in the big moments at the end of this season to convince me? Say, yes, Saliba, you're in my team next season. Declan Rice, you're in my team next season. Bukayo Saka, you are. I haven't. I have to be honest. Does that mean there's no way back? No, of course not. But I have to be honest about what I've seen in the crunch time, and it's not enough. It's not enough for me. Let's come to the super chats. Thank you all for being here, listening for us for 20 minutes. Yeah. Ivan Smith, we can't be angry after that one with anything or anyone except Partey. Anyone who thinks Zubi isn't essential is an idiot. Well, there's a different conversation there about Zubimendi and how that evolves, but that will certainly be happening over the summer. Look, Partey is certainly someone who I would put in that second category, maybe that I was saying there, who I just can't sit here and say to you, for all of his strengths, that's probably 5 or 6 goals this season that I can say to you Thomas Partey was at fault for. Almost entirely individually. And I don't care how good you are in possession. If you're giving up 5, 6 important goals a season, I can't say you're in my team, no doubt, convinced. I'm sorry. And he, for me, was a massive fault for the Hakimi goal. And yeah, big question about him this summer.
I think we've already made the transition decision. I think the context of Thomas Partey's season in general is ironic because he's been completely available, something he hasn't managed to do his entirety of his Arsenal career. It's not the Thomas Partey that I think we bought, and you can't expect it to be physically. As a whole has actually been, for me, across this season, fairly consistent with some pretty big moments in terms of costing the team and costing points. But at the same token, probably been one of our most consistent midfielders across the majority of the season. But you're ultimately, this is somebody that we have looked to bridge, and it is something that we've already started. Like this idea that Martin Zubimendi isn't going to be the bridge to this next season and this new look Arsenal, I think is false. So we've already seen that transition, and what does that look like? And I think that it implies a lot more change in the midfield, and it implies more questions other than Thomas Partey. Like this is somebody that has clearly been important for us this season, that Mikel has relied upon this season, and we've replaced it duly with a very big potential signing in Martin Zubimendi, for big money. So like that's a starting replacement there, and the type of player that he is very different to Partey. I think the only thing is that, Declan Rice has probably risen in more major moments than Partey. But I do have to say, I think he's been one of the more consistent midfielders in a group that consists of Martin Odegaard, who had a really tough season, and Ethan Nwaneri, who has come in moments. So that for me is difficult. Like that's one of the starting additions that I talk about. When you look at this team, it's going to be changed. Gabriel, we know he's a starter. It's going to be changed. You look at the forward line, we need at least 2 additions. Whether one becomes a starter for sure and the other one isn't, that can be up for debate as far as a recruitment standpoint. But you're still looking at minimum 3 to 4 major starting 11 changes to a team, and that some of them are across the spine. So it's been difficult for me to, I don't really want to look at an individual, and I will maintain this isn't a cop out for me. This isn't a cop out on the manager, but I maintain The failings of this season were decided in the summer. The failings of this season were decided in January, and the failings of this season came from a directive that this Arsenal team chose not to recruit a forward in the year 2024 after going and setting records in the Emirates era. As far as investment and recruitment, I categorically refuse to accept, regardless of your feelings on Mikel, on the team, on individual players, that a team should do what they did last year and then deserve no investment. We made profit, mate. We made profit across the entire year of 2024 in a team that has not won yet. Like, the arrogance to me to do that is something I just can never forgive. And it's not to say that I don't believe that we'll recruit. I think we will recruit in the summer, and we will do so heavily. But the arrogance to go there and make a profit over the last year when your team hasn't gone on to win a major trophy or a major honor is incredibly arrogant. And it's incredibly frustrating. And I'm tired of acting like Mikel hasn't been screaming for additions, and the team and the fans haven't been screaming for X factor box efficiency. Categorically refuse to accept that.
Talk to you. As you know, I think the injuries are a bigger factor than the signings, and I would probably use a different word than arrogant, maybe more. To me, it's more incompetence really than arrogance, but we're splitting hairs because it's still a close second for me. And yeah, I do echo a lot of that sentiment. Big Cheese, I'm not watching another minute of anything football related until next season begins. Thank you for all the content this season. Yeah, I have absolutely no idea how we're going to feel from now till June. That's tomorrow's problem. That is tomorrow's problem. Really appreciate it. Super chat, Big Cheese. If there was a stat amount of things that need to go right for a team to score, Arsenal would top it. It's all so intricate. Harish, I completely agree. Completely agree. It's I don't know how many other ways we can say that on this podcast without people just switching off from boredom. Like we've said this how many times, whether it's chaos and order or releasing the shackles. The only thing I will say is I think Mikel has been speaking a little bit more recently about letting players having a bit more freedom and stuff, and it's something I've not heard from him before. But this also comes back fundamentally to talent. Luis Enrique doesn't coach the ball to drop to Fabian Ruiz for him to have a really clean shot. And because he takes that, and again, this is my whole thing about shots, you just take a shot and it might have a ricochet, it might go in, it changes everything goes out the window at that point. Or it doesn't, you can't coach how Hakimi wraps that ball. You can't coach how the threat that Dembele has from the edge of the box. So for me, it's that is the individual talent that we lack and we need to buy.
But I think it's a mentality shift as well in terms of some of that conviction just in general, because I'll be honest, mate, like I had to look at this game in particular. We did some pretty good things as far as differences. I'm looking at, not just the long throw-ins. I'm looking at our use of Calafiori in the last 10 to 15 minutes and the use of Trossard. And that, to me, spoke of a very different type of way to win. And that, I think I had some signs that we're looking towards a difference, but we ultimately know the state of the club right now. So it becomes very difficult to sit there and talk about this game in any kind of isolation, to be honest with you, because for all the good signs, that's what they are. They're signs. They're not an actual result. They're not an actual outcome. And so it's going to be a case of, but who cares? Mentality. And I think we've cultivated that. We made that bed. And so you have to own up to it. I mean, and that's where I really stand on it. And it becomes very, very difficult for me because, again, I do maintain, I even look across the tie and I refuse to believe that tie gets played on significant different timelines, that there could be a different result. It absolutely could. But I don't think that's the point. And if you gloss over that and you rely on it being, well, we were the better team on paper.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we've been doing for the last 3 to 4 years. That's the thinking. And that led to the idea of not wanting to recruit a forward in 2024. Like, it ignores a lot of the things that you must do to get over the line. And, I think the biggest failure of this club is not recognizing that the jump to become title winners from title challengers is a lot bigger than people gave it credit for. That's the one thing I probably would say in a little bit of hindsight reflection.
Yeah, and also it comes back to this Mikel thing of, he's in his preview, he's talking about probabilities, and he's talking about, if we do certain things and the probabilities, bro, that mentality, that mindset hasn't got you anywhere. That thing of like, well, if we just play on the probabilities of things, that's not how this game works. You have to respond in the moment and be willing to take risks that aren't in the probabilities, that aren't in the game model to win. And until you do that, if you rely on the probabilities, you might get there. Maybe you will. You'll get pretty close. You might even win, but you're not going to win consistently because that's not how this game works. Yeah. George Coles, God is dead. I was praying at one point, George. I was praying. Thank you for super chat. Shiv V says Donnarumma drops a 10 out of 10 when he sees Saka for FFS. Yeah, and this is another thing is like, that goal goes in from Saka, either the one he tips over the bar or the one he misses from a couple of yards out, and we're having a completely different conversation. But
Martinelli, Saka.
The save from Odegaard is absolutely insane. But this is the thing is, again, we keep coming back to it, and I don't want to keep repeating the same point. So just to relate it back to what we keep saying, we've said that so many times. But if he just didn't save that one, and if you keep saying it, there's a common denominator. What is it? Shivank, can someone explain why we kept Odegaard on for 90 minutes? I'll say this very quickly, and because I don't want to get into individual analysis this evening. Odegaard has not been good enough at pretty much any point this season. I'm approaching last chance with him. I really am, because I can't justify what I'm seeing. I can't. I'm sorry, and I can't use the out of possession thing, and I can't use he's our captain. I can't use, but he's been here for a long time. I don't care. If you want to win something, sometimes you have to kill your darlings, and he's not been good enough consistently. So and maybe it's his injury. In which case, get the surgery and let me see. It's not good enough.
I think the only thing I'll say, because I've been accused of a hater, quote unquote, of him. So I think that some of my criticisms fall on deaf ears in regards to Martin Odegaard. But I think that a postmortem in a month with time to decompress, I will not feel differently. But I think people may be open to more challenging conversations as far as what we want to do with the team in moments of possession. And we need to have a conversation about the balance between out of possession and in possession, and really evaluate the degree to which the reliance on an out of possession philosophy has on one player in a team that we all proudly say is the best rest defense in the world. In a team that no one can chat to Arsenal's athletic capability at the back. So if we're talking about out of possession strength, 1v1 strength, athleticism there to create a press, to dominate transitions and control those transitions, there isn't a better team philosophically and individually that really can touch Arsenal in that respect. So the in possession stuff becomes important. It's not just a flippant, yeah, but he gives so much in this way. No, but there's an entire half of the game, in fact, more, that Arsenal struggle with. And if you fix that, that's the difference between them becoming not just challengers, but winners. I mean, Arsenal defensively are winners. Arsenal in possession are not winners.
And if our out of possession game completely falls over based off one person not being in the team, then it's not as strong as we think. In the same way that, I'm not trying to bring up the Rashford thing, whether you think it was the right signing or not, but a lot of the argument against him was, well, we're bringing in one character to the dressing room. We've got to be careful. Okay, if one character pulls over your entire project, it wasn't that strong to begin with, was it? Yeah. Jacob the Gooner says, I can't do this anymore, boys. I really can't, mate. Think how we feel. We have to sit here for hours after games and talk about it and try and not just swear at the players and call them all whatevers. The toll of being a fan. Thank you for your subject, Jacob. The toll of being a fan today is so hot, man. It's so sad. It's so sad because like, again, even in the, like, think of the margins, we're so close. It makes it worse. It's not like we were outclassed. It's not, Madrid over 2 legs can go away and go, we were not good enough. We were not good enough in pretty much every phase. We were good enough in basically everything, apart from the one thing we knew we bloody wouldn't be good at. So annoying. This club is definitely cursed, says Maffio. Ivan Smith says, use this to pay for therapy after this season. Thank you, Ivan. You probably get about 2 minutes for a therapy session for that, but we appreciate it regardless. Jake Donovan says, Partey suspension clearly was the issue in the first leg. He plays at the Emirates and that result goes another way. I will die on that hill while the Saka miss haunts my dreams. Look, Jake, the thing is, mate, is you're probably right. You're probably right, is that result changes. But if we say, if Liverpool had an injury and if Havertz doesn't do his hamstring and if Odegaard doesn't roll his ankle and if Saka's a fit and if what does that tell us? What does that tell us? We're relying on too fine a margin to achieve things. You not only have to be good enough to win leagues, you have to be, and Arteta actually said at the beginning of the season, you have to be good even at your absolute worst to win. And we're not. Like, we're not. If one player falling out of the team causes these issues, then that tells us something about ourselves, doesn't it? Mikhail says, played so well tactically, but lack of quality and half fit. Saka killed us. Get the right players in. Or Mikhail's tactics. We got this. Hashtag copium. We had a discussion earlier on the season about sort of where this Premier League season's gone wrong. If you can look at that, and there's a big issue in our game model that we are looking at Mikhail to fix. But if you can look at that and say Mikhail's miles away and we've got nothing right and we're rubbish and we're completely miles off it and we're nowhere near PSG. If you can look at that and say that, you are not just watching the game. We are unbelievable in so many aspects apart from this one thing. And it seems fixable and it's now down to Mikhail to fix it. That's where I stand, basically.
I think where I look at it is focusing on the cons that are within our control to change. That's how I look at things. So like when you talk about the injuries and the context of injuries this season, that's something that no team with wanting to win major trophies consistently can afford. And that's not a failure of a department. Sometimes you just get unlucky with those kinds of things. So that's something that I acknowledge, but that's not just something I can fix. When I talk about like some of the game model changes that we're looking at, particularly in transitions, when we talk about some of the changes that we're looking at in a drawn or a losing game state, when we look at some of the things about losing 21 points from winning positions, when we talk about the failure to, again, I'm going to repeat it and I'm sorry for completing it or repeating it, but to not recruit a forward in the entirety of 2024.
Bingo.
I find it utterly, again, it's embarrassing, but those are happily something to fix, and that's within our control to fix. So I look at those things and I want to talk about those things, and it's not to ignore other cons of the season, but I think those become bigger talking points for me than other things because they're within our control to fix. Not that I think everyone can have their own debate about importance and. I think everybody's allowed to feel what they want to feel. It's just my impression of this and trying to do a postmortem after being incredibly disappointed, with the season, mate. Like, I think after 2025, it's not been fun coming up to defend it. And I knew it was setting us up. I think I said it in the previous podcast. I hate that we've built it up to a do or die moment. And I do think that is worth saying. Like, as much as I want to give Mikhail context for previous years, I do find the story of the season is brilliant to 90%, and it's capitulating in other areas of the season to prop up a moment as the save me point. And we're unable to do it. And at some point it goes, when this has been the case for nearly 4 years running, you can maybe make an excuse for 1, for 2, for 3, but after that, it becomes a pattern, right? And we have to start looking what's in our control, what's contributing to that, what's not in our control, and that's the whole idea of a postmortem, right? That's the whole idea of a recycled analysis on it.
Harry, gutted that we couldn't push through, but I feel like we lack so much energy on our transitions. Too slow to react. Hopefully, address this in the summer. Need that impact player. Yeah, another big issue in our game model that we've spoken about. Absolutely. Thank you for super chat, Harry. Nathan, if not for our history, we would be a Spurs clone. Don't say that. There are going to be Spurs fans who genuinely think it's a bigger achievement to beat, like, who have they beaten, like Frankfurt and Bodo Glimt, and get to a Europa League final than a Champions League final. Whatever. If you'd rather be Spurs, go for it. Go be a Spurs fan. No problem. Ryan Clark, top performance, fine margins, new captain needed. Probably agree with 2.5 of those. You can work out which one is which. Nando 14. This horseshoe attack is ridiculous. It's so messy in the opposition box because we give them enough time to gather the whole team in there to defend, and we try to wade through that muck. I'm tired. Yeah, finding a new model of attack, but again, we can focus on how we attack at the moment. But even with Kai Havertz, we'd attack differently. But with new forwards, we're going to attack very, very differently, I believe. But it goes back to 2023 probably when we knew we needed this, and we're paying for it now. George Coles, a forward, it's deeper than that, don't you think? It is. Of course, it's deeper than that. There's chance creation, and there's out of possession stuff, and there's the transitions, and there's mentality. There's loads of aspects to it. But how much? Basically, the question is, do we get over the line if we have Alexander Isak up top this evening rather than Mikel Merino? Yes, is the answer, because we've created 5 XG. So there you go. Reese, hard year, errors clear. Still love the Arsenal. We still love them, even when it's hard. Clive Baby, absolutely gutted. What we need is elite attackers. Saka can't do it all. By the way, Odegaard again. Why on earth did Arteta not bring on Ethan? Yeah, I couldn't believe he didn't bring on Ethan. To be honest, I couldn't believe the lack of urgency with 5-10 minutes to go, with 2 goals needed. Like we just kept trying to do the same thing, which is a very Arsenal thing to do. El Perdedor says, if you ignore the lack of one area, I don't really understand how you can look at those games and think it's an Arteta problem. Yeah, I think, as we said, I don't think you can look at the 2 PSG games and say, and sort of go, oh, Arteta is the biggest issue in those 2 games. But if you look across our issues as a club over the 6 years that he's been here, there are consistent patterns that we've discussed, and they're playing out again. So maybe not in these individual games, because if Saka scores it, and if, but we keep coming back to the same thing. It's the same thing. You have to take a wider view on it.
Part of the problem, and I'm just gonna respectfully say this: you say one comment as a criticism, and it gets painted as, so you're saying that's the only problem. That's part of the issue. It's multifactorial. There's multiple problems here that I feel contribute. There's some good things too. It's not this idea that the swing from being ultimately brilliant to ultimately shit is not true. But the one thing that I do believe, and really wholeheartedly, is that I think that Arsenal, in order to win trophies, need to have an honest conversation about the step it takes to challenge, to be categorical winners and favorites. And so when I start to talk about improvements, the shift becomes, okay, does this solution categorically make me a favorite to win a title? I want to stop saying this will help me win the title. I want to speak in greater absolutes. And that talks about more of a demand at this point, because I do feel that this season, and I don't know how you feel about it, but we've run out of the context portion of the success of the team. It's going to get to a point in which you do have to produce. And so those questions have to be asked. And, if I don't think we'll do this, but mate, again, if you don't go out into the market and leave an area of the team that we all agree was the biggest problem for an entire year, that's not good enough.
There it is.
Right?
Yeah. Simranjit says this hurts, but let's not forget how PSG have suffered to make another final in the last 5 years. We'll build from here, and our time will come. Come on, you Gunners. Yeah, look, in time, I think I can come with some hope. And realistically, I do think sometimes you have to, like that old. Even if we got to the final, sorry to say, I've said this privately, and you can believe me or not, but I never felt we'd win this because I felt basically. I do believe in that idea that you have to get to a final and lose it before you win it. Like there is something about that because you just go into something. It's the same in anything. Any experience that you have, when you've done something a couple of times, you think back to your first time and you go, I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have done that. That's how it happens. It's how it works. So we have to find ourselves in these positions. But I just wish we'd gone out in a way that I went, okay, fair enough. We actually weren't better than them. Or it wasn't our issues. It wasn't us again doing the same thing that we should have fixed. But our time will come, and I do genuinely believe we will fix these issues in the summer, like genuinely. And on August the 31st, I hope George and I will sit here on a deadline day stream and say, yeah, we think we're going to win this, or at least we've done the stuff that we need to do this because we're seeing the encouragement in the game model, we're seeing the encouragement in the early Premier League games, and we've signed the right players to do so because it's so clear what the issue is. Tyler Blake, why is the postman waiting until today to deliver my Saka UCL jersey I ordered after the first Madrid win? Sorry, Tyler. Stick it on the wall. It's going to be priceless in years to come, my friend. I promise. Thank you for Super Chat. Zombler says, may have lost the Prem and Champions League, but who cares? I've won the biggest prize this season, a new parasocial relationship, and you guys, we go again. Thank you, Zombler. And we do appreciate all of you guys. For tuning into these. Our parasocial relationship with all 2,000 of you is growing, of course, and we're going to be here after every single game, rain or shine or loss or ridiculous XG swing our way. Is there a case to be made that we create the wrong type of chances for these games? We're not creating separation alone. It's too pass reliant, maybe. Yeah. Again, I don't want to go over old ground, but I just think so much of Arteta's game model is based on probability and not on being in the moment, and it's based on and players said this. I remember Kieran Tierney did an interview very, very early on, and he said, like, Arteta tells you what's going to happen when you go out there. Is that good? Is that always good? Like, is that necessarily a great thing that the coach is saying this is going to happen? Because what if the ball ricochets and you don't know what to do? You're going to reset. You're going to go back into the pattern, and I think he's basically creating his whole model to get you in a position where you have some really big chances, which we do. But then if you don't have the best finishers, it doesn't matter. You don't create those half chances where you have a great finisher who just puts it away and that gets you through. So I think you're probably onto something there. Bo, we need a cam that is able to shoot from outside the box because so many chances to shoot and it becomes a problem. Again, I go back to what I said there. It's like Mikel is not going to fold that into his game model because it's not he'll look at how many goals are scored from the edge of the box in the D. I don't want you guys shooting because it doesn't. That's how he'll think, and I think that has to shift. But I think a central midfielder who can shoot from those areas. How many times does the shape open up for a Trossard or an Ødegaard or a Rice to shoot from there, and they don't do it? It's a big problem. George, stop with the striker. We need a new style of play. You said that earlier, George, but thank you for super chat. If only we had Kvara and Marcus Thuram. Not for me, Olsen, but thank you so much for your super chat. I mean, Kvaratskhelia, I don't know how we look at the market in January and see Kvaratskhelia going for that money and don't at least try. That doesn't make any sense to me. But there you go. George, you on Twitter or are you listening?
Oh, I'm listening.
Yes, a striker will help, and we need that number 9, but we also need a genuine vertical 10 as well. Also, look how threatening we were once we became 22, 23 level vertical later on. We need that back in our game. Yeah, I can't disagree with that in terms of how vertical we can be. Yeah, we've spoken about the horseshoe of doom many, many times. It's a frustration. It's not like we all have a different. We might have slightly different takes on it, but we all basically are feeling the same thing about the team. It's just how many different ways can you put it?
Part of the frustration is, mate, like you see this post-mortem turns into something that you've already repeated like several times. I'm just really upset. I'm really upset because it leads to some of these poor conclusions that I'm not willing to attribute to the team. whilst also admitting that there's some major improvements that I want to see fixed both on and off the pitch. And that's just where I stand on it. Like I carry both of these opinions at the same time. And I don't believe that it's all doom and gloom. I don't think that it's impossible to bridge that gap, but I think it is important that we have some serious conversations about how to get there. I do think that it's important to recognize the fact that it's not a small jump. I do think that it's a major jump to become favorites to win a trophy. Not that you can, and I really want to change that mentality. Like I want to assess every decision we make with, will this make Arsenal favorites for the Premier League? Will this make Arsenal favorites to win the Champions League? I want to be very firm with those kind of decisions. And we are allowed to be that ruthless after the amount of time it's taken us to arrive at this position. And we are allowed to have that mentality. I think that's the one thing, I would insist on in the summer. It's one thing that I would insist on, when you talk about the game model, right? Like, in terms of the tempo, will changing the tempo make you favorites for the Champions League? Will changing the idea that, you lost 21 points from winning positions make you win the Premier League and make you win major honors? Like, yeah, like all of those are clear yeses. Like, you don't need to be a coach or someone serious, like a serious analyst, to know that question. But I do think on some of these things, you talk about Martin Odegaard and the impact, you're going to have to ask a question about the formation of that midfield. Will changing it change us to become favorites to win a major trophy? Yeah. You're going to have that conversation. And wherever you stand on those opinions, just need to be consistent with that, in my opinion. I don't want to go to a period where I think we just need a little bit of this to get us over the line. Because I do think that gap is a little bit bigger than maybe we appreciate. And for a team that hasn't won in a decade, like, it's worse from a team that has won recently, as a club that has won recently. So I do think that gap is bigger than people appreciate. I don't think that means that it's impossible to get to. Like, that's just where I stand on it. I'm very confident we can bridge that gap this summer, actually, in terms of what we have to do. But I think we have to be ruthless. I think we have to be critical where it deserves to be critical, and you take things from there.
We could sail across the Atlantic on a sailing boat, and probably could, if we paint it nicely and we get the right wind, and we just buy a Sunseeker. Just buy a Sunseeker. Just don't leave anything up to doubt. Just do it. Eric Eighth, man, guys, we played so well. In the end, we didn't go through. Damn, it hurts. We have such an unbelievable big summer ahead that will make or break everything from here on out. Yeah, I will talk a lot more about Mikel's future and stuff, but I think next season it does depend how it goes. It does depend how it goes, because maybe there's one more, depending on what happens in the summer, etc., and how the circumstance plays out. But we're approaching. I'll say this: if we don't win a Premier League or Champions League in the next 2 seasons, probably 1 season, he's out. Do
you give it next year as well?
Yeah, I think so. Again, it depends on the if we absolutely stink out the gaff in all 4 competitions next season, I think it's a genuine conversation, and we need to assess that properly. You can't say that about the context. But is Mikel going to be here in 2 years' time or a year and a half's time if he stinks out the gaff? I can't imagine that. So it is make or break. It's absolutely make or break. Like, that's it. Joshua, Arteta has only signed 1 centre forward. Yes. Oh no, sorry, that was much further down. Apologies. We said that one. EK. Yes, we still haven't seen Mikel buy forwards. Here we go. I believe we've been vastly overperforming for years. We're not as good a squad as we think. Our recent relevance is 100% due to Arteta's genius. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about overperforming, but I think in terms of the individual quality, Saka is good enough to win Champions Leagues. Rice is good enough to win Champions League. Saliba is good enough to win Champions Leagues. Outside of that, do I have no... I'm not saying that David Raya couldn't, or I'm not saying that maybe Mikel Merino couldn't be part of a team, or Jurriën Timber couldn't be part of a team, or Martin Odegaard couldn't be part of a team that wins the Champions League. But am I just sat there going, you're good enough? as I would with a Dembele, with a Hakimi, with a Nuno Mendes, with a Donnarumma, with a Vitinha, with a, you go through those and you go, yeah, you guys should be winning Champions Leagues. No, so maybe. Anthony B, do you worry we'll never get over the line? Every day of my life, Anthony. And I will be doing so for another year. Think how I feel. This is my job. Every day. Thank you for Super Chat. Nathan says, we saw our right work wonders, but we didn't have other reliable attack phases and short on full squad quality. We tried to recruit for symmetrical return on the left. Hope to fix our issues and not tiptoe around them again. Absolutely, Nathan. Yeah, and I think, look, we have to say, no Jesus, no Havertz, no Calafiori. Well, certainly not fit enough to start.
Can I ask you?
Starter. No Jorginho, no Tomiyasu. That all has an impact. But so we are short on full score quality, but everything else stands.
I here, let me ask you in this way, right? Like, because again, when you talk about like the injuries and about having people back, fundamentally, when I have a look at creating a dynasty, so not just the ability to win a trophy, like when I talk about saying we have to become favorites to win trophies and we have to go on that route, it's about sustained trophy success, right? If you want to create an era, right? Fundamentally, I have a look at this defense. There are more than 2 people in the back 5 that can approach or are arguably world class. Right now, you can confidently say that, yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. You look at the midfield, you can start to maybe have some questions, but we are recruiting a 60 million pound midfielder that is widely considered to be one of the best players in his position. Okay. So as far as the midfield goes, you could argue if Odegaard comes back, there is enough talent there to argue. But I could say confidently there's one. There's one world-class midfielder in that midfield. You look at the forward line, same kind of thing. There's categorically one world-class forward. There's a lot of functional forwards. There's a lot of players that do well. There's a lot of good players. It's not bad. There are a lot of good players, but are there 2 world-class forwards? And when you break it down really simply like that, in terms of defense, midfield, and attack, and say that there is only 2 world-class bona fide options in one area of your pitch, in 1/3 of the pitch, you're not going to succeed. Or rather, you're not likely to succeed. You may succeed, but you rely on margins. You certainly won't be favorites towards a position. And so I think the irony within all this is if you had the cold light of day looking at the Liverpool squad and looking at how we failed in that season, I think a lot of people would look at it ironically in very similar fashion. They've got 2 bona fide world-class defenders, potentially 3, categorically. They have 1 world-class forward. They have a lot of functional forwards, but 1 categorically world-class. You look at that midfield, I don't know if you can say Gravenberch is necessarily world-class, but he's been performing close to a world-class level this season. But that's also a question mark. So they've been able to win. And I think that, our squad could have won the season in the Premier League this season. But when I look at dynasties and I look at Arsenal's invincible squad, and I run through that list, how many people are world-class in the defensive department? It was easily 2. Easily. Probably 3, but I'll give you 2. Then you look at the midfield. There were 100% 2 world-class options there. Same in the forward line. Look at Dennis Bergkamp, Henry, Perez. You look at the United treble-winning side. Same kind of thing. You go through the departments, and you can categorically align at least 2 departments having 2 world-class talents in each of them. And I just fundamentally, I look at it like that, mate. And it's a complicated way of saying we need a needle mover in the forward areas that we've neglected for so long. You can talk about maybe adding in midfield. I don't mind how that looks. Like, for example, if we were to recruit a Florian Wirtz, for example, a Jamal Musiala, am I saying that won't win us a title? Of course it will. But you're talking about a talent at that point that moves the needle. And so when you ask yourself, does Jamal Musiala make Arsenal win trophies? Yes, that's a talent that absolutely does. And I just think that that's the mentality that we have to approach at this point. We have squeezed the lemon at every single margin in this squad. We have squeezed the lemon. Now I think it's time to be ruthless. I know personally, I'm at a position where next year I have a little bit more aggressiveness in terms of how I want to evaluate this team. I look at it as a case of it is time to win. And the context around it starts to remove for me. That's just my personal. I'm not telling anybody how to feel. Just my personal journey right now. And I mean, it is under the condition that we do what I believe is right in terms of actually recruiting forward talent. I do believe that has always been the last step for me. Even last year when I said, what did we need? I just needed somebody to win me moments. I didn't really care. There were some other holes. They were neglected. But that was something that I felt we needed. And if I see a failure in that department because we have recruited over £100 million worth of talent in pretty much every department, bar the forward line, and we do that, we hit that point, I struggle, to evaluate a coach that has had that level of investment and not been able to get over the line. Even if there's some context behind it, because he's had 5 years at that point and he's had over 100 million talent in every single position. No matter how much I love the man, I cannot refuse that. So for me personally, I'm a lot more harsher on the next year evaluation of this team. And I just do think that we need to have a hard look and have some hard questions.
Yep. And I think it will mean moving on from some talents that we like and we think are great and could be great, but aren't great right now. And we need them to be great right now.
Yeah.
Boulishan, beaten by the baguette munchers. I'm sorry, French listeners. Chat, is this real? As always, big up the show. We go again with signings. We mustn't forget it's been raining. Was it raining? Can we blame that? Why? Thank you, Super Chat. Why? The problem was we didn't get the job done first game. Not a bad away performance. XP in the bank. Experience in the bank. How many signings to fix us? Well, it's not in terms of the. It's a shame because probably realistically, you everything goes right for you. You don't even need a signing because we're brilliant. We are brilliant. If the margins go for us, and that's the point. It's just you just buy the Sunseeker. Like you could get over the Atlantic on a rowboat because we have great oars and everything's fine and we have enough people in the boat. And if we make sure that we swim that way, not that way, and because that time when someone drop their oar and just buy a Sunseeker. Like probably we don't need that much, but we do. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, we've said that a million times. George Cole, Zubimendi won't help us. I think he will, George. We'll talk about that this summer. Jay Chuck says, who did we sign last summer? Does the team looking to win the league or anything make such signings? It was then I knew how the season would play out. Look, fair enough. I was more optimistic, and I think a lot of people were, but it turned out not to be the case. Alejandro Tibercio says, when will the handbrake be removed? Is it the team? I think the general handbrake is the coach, and the handbrake a little bit is also the players, but they can't be unwoven. Alexander Ramsey, I understand the importance of context. I just wish we could be more matter of fact and decisive like these other teams. PSG were ruthless, and we are never ruthless. Decisiveness in attack is necessary. Completely agree, Alexander. Hope you appreciate that. We would love to discuss that, but we hopefully have kind of come to that as much as possible. Joseph Hannon says, you guys are always good for therapy after a loss. Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate it. O'Malley says, what you see on the field is a mirror reflection of the club as a whole. Arsenal has not been a win now urgent club. Raya said it, 6 years, no trophies. Why you partake in sport? No killers in the club. I would only disagree and say not enough killers. I think going back to George's point earlier, I think there's just more killers in the guys who are going to win. Okay, who's the best attack in the Champions League this season? Probably Barcelona. They scored 160 goals. It's because they got 3 world-class attackers. It's that simple for me. Dane, XG philosophy on aggregate over 2 legs. Arsenal 5.11. 1 to PSG, who scored 3 from 3.08. Yep. Basically providing the numbers to the issues that we have. Is Havertz in the tier of Declan, Saliba, and Saka, or in the Odegaard, Martinelli, and of players we can or can't rely on? I think it would have depended on his performances in the back end of the season, to be honest. For me, right now, he's in the second tier. But again, I would love Havertz or Odegaard or Martinelli to push up. It's just, can you guarantee me that in such an important season? I don't think you can.
Can you agree that he's in the category that you have to squint at moments
Yes.
to justify?
And you don't need you. No one needed to with Rice or Saka or Saliba. No one needs to.
That's kind of my point.
More of those guys.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that I'm just going to say this one more time. That for me is the point about decisions this season. We can't squint. That's why I want us to evaluate every decision we make with the monomer. Will Arsenal become favorites for a Champions League or Premier League title doing this? Insert blank here. I have several blanks that we'll discuss on postmortems. And no, like I know George had mentioned, like for myself, I said just a striker. No, I've listed so many different reasons across this live. There are about 3 or 4 major things and specific things, by the way, that I want to see fixed that I would put in the fill in the blank category. Absolutely. However, you know, I think that that's the attitude that I would like to see the club make personally.
Yeah.
That's all.
Cal's Corner, no Waneri. Why? No idea, mate. Sorry. I don't understand. I don't understand that. And I think I genuinely think he could be as good as he is now. If he was 21, he would have got minutes. It's just the fact he's young. He's ready. He's good enough. I don't understand why he didn't play. Doesn't make sense to me. Daniel Beresford, who should we sell in the summer? I really don't think Martinelli is good enough. Maybe Martinelli. This has been my point for such a long time. Martinelli, maybe he gets there, maybe he doesn't, but we don't have time to wait anymore. We don't have time to wait. So for me, if a big offer comes in, great. If not, we keep him. And for me, I think you have to sign a win now forward. If Martinelli is in that group, then great. In terms of big sales, him and Odegaard are certainly there. Thomas Partey might go for a free. But as George said, I just don't want to squint. I don't want to have to go, oh, if. I don't want to do that anymore. Don't want to do that. Kenny Nguyen, I blame Edu for everything. His recruitment in 2024 was horrendous, and he left just before the January window. Also proves that Arteta has absolutely no control over transfers. Well, I think Arteta is part of transfers. I think Edu is maybe an underrated part of this season in terms of the lack of preparation and the lack of, why did Arsenal not sign anyone in 2024? As George has said, you can't divorce that from the Edu conversation. But equally, you have to be ready for anything. We have to be ready tomorrow. If Mikel Arteta said, "I don't want to coach Arsenal anymore," we have to be ready. That's what a proper top institution with thousands of employees does. You have to be ready. Know the next best coach. Know the next best centre back after Saliba. Know exactly who you're going after. And if you can't get him, then who's after him? And if you can't get him, who's after him? That's what you have to do. So, yes, it's a part of it, but we can't. For me, I can't blame him for everything. Insomniac, I don't think Mikel will get the players he wants. Personally, I think he will, but let's see how that plays out over the summer. Dane Howard says, not PSG related. Please do a new scout on Sesko with this season's clips. Much love from Johannesburg, South Africa. Dane, we will probably do that over the summer, so your wishes will be granted. For sure. Ed Castona says, this story of the season was determined by the huge amount of injuries. Anyone seen a team with this many injuries dragged to a Champions League semi-final? The lads are tired due to no rotation. It affects performances. Yeah, look, big part of this season. If you just took 2024-25 and said, why did that play out the way it did? That's for me the most important factor. But I don't think that you can divorce it from a wider contextual conversation for sure. But thank you for super chat. Top level, have we gone forwards, backwards, or stayed level over the last 14 months?
I think static is more appropriate, and that's failure to me, personally. And you can talk about the context as to why it's maintained that level, but mate, like I can't ignore the stat of losing 21 points from winning positions. That, regardless of whether or not you've got injuries, and injuries do affect your ability to close out results. That's categorically true, but it went past the point. Like 21 points is not a small margin, mate. Like I can maybe attribute 20%. I can attribute 10, 12 points to that. Same as I could attribute that to the refs, to injuries. Like I think 12 points we can start talking about, small portions towards the season. But when you're talking about 21 points, mate, and then when you start breaking down, okay, how are Arsenal in drawn or losing situations? That becomes a really, really big question mark. And yes, injuries will help us drag that total back down. Absolutely. But when you create a season like that, I understand why people are upset. And it's not just if we had more injuries or more luck with refs, whatever you want to call it on the soft factor point, because it is stuff out of our control, right? Like the refs, I can't magically dink them and be like, boom, we're going to get better with the refs next season. I can't magically dink and say, boom, we're not going to suffer the same injuries that have had at least 6 major starters out of an Arsenal season. You can't win trophies that way. So I just don't like looking at football that way. But I do think that is it is a major problem. It is a major problem.
Anorak says 7 clear of 5th to finish 5th in 2022, 8 clear of 2nd to finish 2nd in 2023. Can't compete with City in 24. Injuries and refs in 25. It's not just 2 games of more XG versus PSG. Arteta is majorly to blame. Yeah, he's got to take his part in it, but I don't know on the macro of the whole project and on the micro of the 2 PSG games, even just tonight. For me, Arteta takes less blame for the latter, much more blame for the first one. But until I see that, what I feel is the ultimate difference given to him, I can't then go, okay, you've had enough now, buddy. And yeah, we won't cover that again. Joshua, Arteta has only signed 1 centre forward. Yeah, it's just not good enough. Alejandro Tibercio, I need Arsenal to spend 500 million to show what they want to win. Buy quality, sell those whose quality is enough. Look at Inter, who got quality. I don't know if we need 500 million, but more than 200. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's approaching 300 for what we need this summer. LT, Arteta is a disciple of Pep, who had Messi, Lewandowski, Aguero, and Haaland. The ideas are similar, but maybe those players are a bit better than Jesus or Kai. Absolutely, no disagreeing there. But ultimately, he's had 6 years to either prep players to be in that position or sign players to go and do that. And he's been a part of it. So he has to take his part in that. Mikolai says, food for thought. Are we overachieving this group of players and manager, and a lot needs changing for next season? I think there's one thing actually in terms of wages. I think I'd love to see us pull in line with wages. I still think we're like the 4th or 5th highest wage budget in the league, or certainly in terms of our commercial revenues. We have room to grow regardless with our wages. We can have, people are saying, oh, we don't want to give Nico Williams 300 grand or whatever it is. If that's what he wants, if that's the player we want, just pay that. Because that's what PSG are paying. It's what Bayern Munich are paying. It's what Barcelona are paying. It's what Man City are paying. It's what Liverpool are paying. And if we want to be in that group, we have to pay those wages. Brian Holiday, we're not good enough from the coaching to players to the board. We need change and fast. I'm losing faith in this process. Brian, I hope in a week or 2, maybe we can talk and take more stock. Tough result to take, but I'm proud of the performance as a fan. I'd also like to hear your opinions on Rodrigo and Osimhen as possible additions. Well, those are the level. Imagine if we'd spoken about Osimhen last summer, George. Imagine. What would we be doing? Can you imagine if we'd done that? Those are the level of additions that we want. Like, let's put it that way. Like, we're not. I don't want to be talking about, El Hanous, and could El Hanous be the answer if he's played in it? Stop. Just buy the best players. So yeah, those are certainly the players. And we'll maybe do a scouted on if the link's hot up to Rodrigo, we'll probably do another scouted on Osimhen as well. Because yeah, those are the level. Forget all the outside noise. Sorry, because we're approaching an hour and a half, so we need to zoom through these a little bit. But thank you for the super chats. Forget all the outside noise. Just bring in the attacking signings, and we cook next season. Then we're crossing the ball into an empty 6-yard box. Couldn't agree more, Fahim. Thank you for your super chat. Zombler, Martinelli opens his bag of tricks. Oh, looky here, another byliner. Yeah, Martinelli, and it's something I was saying at the beginning of the season that I think you put it best. I don't want to squint, and I'm still squinting, and I don't want to next season. A good centre forward opens things up for Odegaard. I actually agree with this, and similar with Martinelli, it may well be that if say we got Isak, there's a world Martinelli still cooks for us. We need it now. GA, thank you for super chat. Super sticker. Really appreciate that. Soon says the real link is missing with Saliba. Is messing with Saliba, do you think? Oh, the Real link is messing with Saliba, do you think?
No.
George says no.
Did you see his recent quotes? He literally made like a couple days ago about how much he loves the team. Like, I don't think it's anything beyond what we have seen from Madrid for the past 2 months after beating them. The same thing happened with Zubamendi. The same thing is going to happen consistently with that. Let me put it to you this way. Saliba is a good enough player and a world-class talent that we don't have to rely on media soft factor things like that to affect a performance. Personally, I think it does him a disservice if I'm calling him that level of a pillar. Does him a disservice because those mistakes aren't I'm distracted. So he knows better. He has more accountability than I think a lot of people do with that. So yeah, I don't think that, respectfully, that's not what I think is happening.
Yeah, I buy that. Vistaverse, don't you feel Arteta has lost his boldness? He's got all his hair, so maybe that was a stupid joke. I don't know. I don't know. It's not for me. It's not the night. Like I actually think, to be honest, he was giving his players more freedom towards the end of 24-25, but without the signings, without the players that are on the bench, it's very hard to assess that, to be honest. Anurag says, Alex talking about next year's context. We can't compete with City. They spent 500 million and have Rodri back, but Pep might be leaving City. Salah, Virgil van Dijk leaving Pool. Just kidding, but also will be true. I'll tell you now, I won't be saying that, because if we sign who we need to sign in the summer, there are, ultimately, if a meteor falls on the Emirates, yes, we need to talk about context. But if we have anything approaching a decent season, likewise compared to this season, we're having serious conversations about the manager. Mikhail says, in Berta we trust, absolutely, over the course of the summer. Mr. Smythe, GCSE Maths. Hope it's going well, sir. Best of luck with everyone's exams. Thank you for your super chat. 5 years. What phase is Hansi in, or even Slot? Sigh. We've been patient, haven't we? Bulishan, George, not signing a recognised forward in the year 2024 AFC. Thanks so much for doing this, guys. I understand how tough it can be. We all love you. Thank you, Bulishan. Appreciate that. This is his catchphrase at this point. Choose one, Rodrigo or Isak. Isak, absolutely no question at all. Are there players like Martinelli that can argue need an overlapping fullback to thrive, aka platforming, or are we past the stage of squeezing maximum out of potential? Yes, yeah. And if we'd signed an overlapping fullback last summer, maybe we see the best of Martinelli. But we're going. Is it Lamine Yamal? Doesn't need that. Saka doesn't need that. Saliba doesn't need that. Rice doesn't need that. Sign those guys. Ivan, Arteta wanted Vlahovic, Isak, Sesko, Rafinha, and he was given Jesus and Sterling. Hopefully, Berta will deliver like we need to. This is a good point. When you see the way Rafinha, like even that goal yesterday where he shoots it off his left and then the rebound off his right, that two-footed quality, something we need. Highbury Ultra says, we're level-headed to assess factors to why we failed. Most of the fans are not. They're calling for his head. You don't go over the line so many times. The context doesn't matter to people, unfortunately. Yeah, but also, and this is probably more on Arteta's side, right? Like, also, that you can't cry context. How long can you say context for? Like, that is also a question. You can say context, but how long can you say context for? Can we still be saying in 2037? Yeah, but the context. Yeah, but this is the game. The game is to get the fine margins to turn in your favor. And if you're doing things consistently that aren't helping with that, then it doesn't make you could have the worst game model in the world and just somehow find a way through. You'd still get the result everyone wants. So if Dwight mentions his wife again, oh my word, I don't know who Dwight is, Bulishan, but Dwight Jeffries. I need someone to do my wife as I sit and oh Christ, Dwight, I'm going to put you in timeout. But enjoy your fantasies. Highbury says sign Osimhen. We crossed the ball too much for Gyökeres. Yeah, we'll certainly do a we'll probably do a scouted certainly on Sesko and Osimhen and every other forward under the sun. Please God, let's sign one. Oh.
Look, it is the only thing that I'll say is a big thank you to all of our members. Guys, we don't always say the right things. It's difficult for us to come on here after results like that, after a season like that. But it is one thing I will always love is the community that we've built. We're not going anywhere. That includes Arsenal. Despite the things that we need to do in order to improve, I have a lot of hope for this team, as I always will. I am an optimist. I will try to give you my biggest reflection points, but just a big thank you to everyone that has supported us. As Alex is able to go out of his coma, I think that, from a Cannon podcast perspective, it's onward and upward. It is only the beginning, and we love you all, both YouTube members and Patreon members. We really, really do. So thank you so much for sticking with us, and this is part of the fan journey, and we will be here. Win, lose, or draw, we will be here.
What George said. Oh, guys, that was so painful. We will be back. Take a few days. Well, I'm going to talk about myself. I'll talk about myself. I won't tell you what to do. I'm going to take a few days. And we'll be back with a post-mortem of this season. And try, we don't have to jump to solutions straight away. Don't be a 15-year-old boyfriend in his first relationship. You don't have to give solutions straight away to your girlfriend. Just listen for a bit, take it all in, maybe come back with solutions another day. And we'll be back with a proper post-mortem of the season at some point. We'll be back with hopefully some positivity about where we can go. Look, ultimately there's the frustration. The frustrating part is we're 99% of the way there. And you can't always be 99% of the way there and not do that final part. Yes, but also that means we're incredibly close. And that also means there are actionable things that we can do that we've said, I don't know how many times this podcast, to fix this. There are things we can do to fix this. We're not sat here going, I don't understand how that game played out the way it did. I don't understand what that player's doing. That player's 37 and over the hill. We're not sat there doing this. So we are sat here with a lot of actionable things that we can do. And it's now about a case of doing them. But as for me, I need a beer. I need to sleep. I need to not think about Arsenal for a good 3 days, although that probably won't happen. Thank you, George.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you. We'll be back, I think, for TCB Live. Christ. We're going to have a chat. Well, George and I will have a chat now about what we're doing. Thank you for being here. Thanks, members and patrons. If you want to do that, join us as we mull over this crazy season. Look after yourselves. Thanks for watching. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying!